I always told myself my mom did the best she could. That was my mantra anytime things got complicated. Money went missing. Promises were broken. My birthday was forgotten. She did the best she could, became the bandage over every cut. And honestly, I believed it. I needed to. Growing up, she had this way of turning guilt into affection. If I got upset that she used my allowance to pay for her nails, she'd press her forehead to mine and whisper, "One day when you're older, you'll understand what it's like to be a mother." I didn't fully understand then, but I've carried those words with me my entire life, quietly waiting for when they'd make sense. After college, things started to turn around for me. I got a decent job in logistics. Nothing glamorous, but steady, with benefits. I moved into a clean, modest one-bedroom apartment, and for the first time, had a little money left at the end of the month. I started saving obsessively. My goal was simple, a $10,000 safety cushion. Money I could fall back on. Money that meant freedom. Money that meant I never had to move back home, and I was proud. Maybe too proud. I'd have lunch with my mom some weekends, and when she complained about gas prices or how high her water bill was, I didn't jump in. I just nodded, listened, and kept my boundaries tight. I thought that was personal growth. I thought that meant I'd learned something. So when she called that Wednesday afternoon, I didn't see it coming. "I just need to put one bill on your card," she said casually, like we were still close, like we were still in that place where trust lived. "It's only 127 cents, the water company is being insane. I'll pay you back Friday, I swear on my life." I hesitated for maybe 5 seconds, not because I didn't believe her, but because I did. And worse, because I wanted her to see me as generous, capable, a daughter she could be proud of. So I said, "Okay, just this once. You still have the info from last time?" "Yep, thank you, sweetheart," she said, her voice dipped in honey. This means a lot. It wasn't even 2 hours later when I got the alert. "Suspicious activity detected on your account. Please verify recent charges." My heart dropped into my stomach. I clicked the notification immediately, hands shaking. At first I thought maybe the bank was just glitching, or maybe Mom accidentally hit pay twice or something. No. The screen loaded and scrolled, and kept scrolling. There were 7 charges from a high-end beauty supplier, one from a high-end steakhouse, another $400 at a luxury spa, then a series of hundreds, and then a single $2,300 charge to what I knew, instantly, was a designer outlet she loved. I checked the balance, zeroed at 13. Remaining, gone. It was all gone. The entire 10 grand I had clawed my way to save. Wipe by wipe of a budget app, gone in 90 minutes. And it wasn't hacked. It wasn't some cyber criminal from Russia. It was her. I sat on the floor and stared at the screen until it dimmed to black. Then I checked again, thinking maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was a bug. Maybe it wasn't real. But it was. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Mom, call me now. Something's wrong with the account." No answer. Then, 15 minutes later, she called me back, with a laid-back voice like we were catching up. I didn't even let her talk before I said, "What did you do with my card?" She paused for a beat. "What do you mean?" "You didn't just pay a bill. It's all gone, Mom. $10,000, you drained the account." There was rustling on the other end. Then, laughter. Not loud. Almost a scoff. "Oh, stop it. I didn't take $10,000. Maybe a few things added up. You must be mistaken. I can see the exact charges. You think I don't know your favorite stores?" And then she sighed. She sighed, "I thought you'd be happy to help. And honestly, if you had 10 grand sitting around, I don't think you're hurting that bad." That was the moment something broke in me. Something quiet but huge. She hung up before I could say another word. I stared at the phone in disbelief, heart pounding cold. Not just from shock, but that deep lingering freeze you feel when you realize someone you love knew better. And still chose to hurt you, and that was the moment I knew. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about what she thought she could get away with. The second the call dropped, I opened my banking app again like the numbers were going to change just because I stared at them long enough. But they didn't. It was all still there. Line after line of transactions that screamed her name. Uber Eats from a restaurant 3 miles from her house. 3 separate beauty supply orders. A purchase from a boutique I knew she loved. The same one she always called her treat-yourself spot. And then there it was, clear as day, a $2,300 charge from Chateau Luxe, a designer outlet that was miles above my budget. I had literally walked past it 6 months ago and laughed to myself, thinking, another lifetime, maybe. She didn't even try to be subtle. She blew through 10 grand in less than 2 hours like she had been waiting for the opportunity. My stomach twisted. Not just from the loss, but the betrayal underneath it. My savings weren't just numbers in an app. They were my months of skipping brunch invites, canceling streaming services, saying no to small joys because I was planning for something bigger. A future, stability, independence. I dialed her again, and this time she picked up. "What now?" she said, like I was calling about nothing. "You spent it all. Not just the bill. Everything." A beat of silence. "You must have given me the wrong account." "No, Mom. It was my savings account attached to the card. You spent over $10,000. I can see every charge. I know where you shop, remember?" Another pause. "Well, then maybe someone hacked it," she offered blandly, like she was reading off a script. "I wouldn't have spent that much." I heard wind in the background. She was outside, and it hit me. She was shopping. Still, her calm made me feel like I was crazy. Like I had imagined the whole thing. How could she be so calm when she stole everything from me in minutes? "You didn't even pay the utility bill," I said, voice shaking now. "That's the one thing you promised to do." "Okay, first of all, calm down." That set something off in me. "Calm down?" She emptied my account, laughed on the phone, and now she wanted me to calm down? I couldn't. I wouldn't. "Do you even realize what you've done?" I asked. "That was all the money I had to my name. I was going to put down a deposit on a safer apartment next month. I was planning my life. You didn't just take money, you took my future." That's when her voice changed. Frustrated, annoyed. "If you had $10,000 to lose," she said, "maybe you didn't need it that bad to begin with." Just like that. Like she was doing me some twisted favor. My mouth physically dropped open. I didn't even know what to say. My hands were cold. My forehead was hot. "You're unbelievable," I finally whispered. "No, what's unbelievable?" she snapped. "Is how stingy you are with the woman who raised you. You forgot every time I skipped bills to make sure you ate. One time you helped me out and suddenly I'm the villain. And then," she hung up again, not a single word of apology, not even fake confusion. She didn't even bother pretending anymore. I just sat there numb. 10,000 reasons to cry, and somehow I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, something else settled in, heavier, older. The realization that this wasn't the first time she'd taken from me. It was just the time I finally saw it for what it was. The next day, I woke up hoping it was some kind of fever dream, but it wasn't. I checked the account again, still empty. Every dollar I had worked for gone. There wasn't a magical reversal or undisclosed refund. Just a line of brutal transactions that read like a receipt for my shattered trust. I called her again. This time she answered with a light hello. Like nothing had happened. "Mom, I'm serious. We need to talk," she exhaled loudly. "Are you seriously still going on about this?" My voice was calm, but I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. "You emptied my savings. You promised you'd use the card for a bill, and instead You're being dramatic," she snapped back. "It's not like you won't make it back. You're young. You've got your little fancy job now. This kind of money comes and goes." My hands clenched. "It doesn't come and go. I said yes to one bill. You lied. You didn't even try to ask. You just took." There was a long pause, and then the tone shift. The one I'd heard my whole life. "I wiped your nose. I stayed up with you when you had night terrors. I cleaned up your messes, drove you to school when I could barely afford gas, gave you everything I didn't have, and you're whining about money like a spoiled brat. After everything I've given you." My breath caught in my throat. She didn't see it as theft. She saw it as a down payment she was collecting. Like I had some moral debt I was unaware of. Something no contract had warned me about. That one day I'd succeed enough for her to claim what she believed was rightfully hers. I told her this wasn't fair, that I trusted her. And she laughed again. "Don't get so high and mighty. It's not like you're starving. You act like $10,000 is $1 million. I hung up first that time. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall while a thought clawed through me. Maybe it's not even illegal. I called my bank to dispute the charges, clutching every receipt, hoping I could label it fraud. But the man on the line asked the question that rotted in my gut. Did you give her the card? Yes, I admitted. And was she authorized to use it? For one bill, but not all of it. Unfortunately, ma'am, if she had access and it wasn't reported as stolen, we can't categorize it as fraud. Just like that, all the hope I had evaporated into nothing. And you know what she was doing while I was crying on the phone with some stranger about the money she stole? Posting on Facebook. I saw the first picture an hour later, a mirror selfie in a fitting room, holding up an expensive-looking coat. Captioned, "Finally doing something for me, worth it, or self-care." Then another one, a boomerang of her champagne glass clinking with someone else's. New beginnings. Debt-free, hulaed champagne moments, and the worst one, a picture of white designer heels I know were $500. She posted, "Remember when you said I couldn't?" I did. It wasn't just the purchases. It wasn't just the captions. It was the gloating, the flaunting of what she stole from me, dressed up as healing and freedom. I wanted to scream. Report every post. Expose her in every comment section. But I didn't. I sat there with a hollow chest and this pounding thought circling in my brain. She doesn't think I deserve my own success. She thinks I owe it to her. It's funny how, when something breaks big enough, you start to hear the cracks that were always there. After she stole my savings, I started remembering things differently. Moments I'd filed away as one-time mistakes or she's doing her best suddenly had sharp, jagged edges. They didn't feel like isolated incidents anymore. They felt like chapters in a pattern I'd been too young to name. When I was 16, we had this fundraiser at school. Everyone was saving up for the senior trip to New York, our one big memory before graduation. I worked 2 part-time jobs that summer, babysitting and waitressing at this greasy burger joint where I came home smelling like fryer oil. I saved every $20 bill in a mason jar hidden behind my books. I was up to $740, almost at my goal. I was so proud. One morning, I woke up and the jar was gone. I looked everywhere, under the bed, in my closet, behind the dresser. Finally, I asked her. She didn't even flinch. Just kept washing dishes and said, "I used it for rent." We were short, no apology, no offer to replace it. I just stood there, blinking, holding back tears while she added, "Besides, it's not like New York is going anywhere. You'll travel when you're older." I didn't get to go on that trip. I spent the weekend watching Instagram stories of my classmates eating street pretzels, laughing on the subway, going to Broadway shows. She let me sit in that silence, that disappointment, like it was part of growing up. And then the iPad. It was an old one I'd gotten for my birthday 2 years before. Cracked screen, slow as hell, but it had all my notes and drawings. I was keeping a digital journal back then. Sketches, random dreams, little personal thoughts I wasn't brave enough to say out loud. One weekend I came home from school and it was gone. She told me she sold it to help cover groceries. Same tone, same nonchalance. When I got upset, she hit me with, "Excuse me? I gave you a roof and lights. You think a tablet matters more than that?" That became her favorite defense. "I gave you a roof. I gave you lights. I gave you food. And fare, maybe she did. But she gave it like a vending machine you had to beg for. Not a mother." And then, there was how she treated my siblings. I was the oldest, and that came with responsibilities I didn't choose. I babysat. I cleaned. But my youngest brother? He was her heart. Her miracle baby. He never got scolded. Never had to earn his way. He once pushed my birthday cake off the table during my 15th party, screaming that he didn't want me to have attention. She laughed. Told everyone he's just a little jealous. Aren't siblings funny? No, they weren't. At the time I thought, maybe this is how moms act. Maybe I was too sensitive, but now I know better. She didn't just borrow. She took. She didn't just play favorites. She weaponized love. She made me confuse silence with strength, boundaries with disrespect, and guilt with gratitude. She didn't raise me to be independent. She raised me to be useful. And the worst part? Back then I thanked her for it because I didn't know any better. I didn't scream. I didn't post online. I didn't drive to her house demanding justice. I just shut everything down. I canceled the card, changed all my passwords, disabled auto deposits, and opened a brand new account at a different bank, one she didn't know even existed. For the first time, I realized how exposed I'd let myself be, not just financially, but emotionally. I had let someone like her hold something precious, believing she'd protect it, when really, she was waiting for the right moment to empty it. At night, I cried quietly into my pillow. Not because I was broke, but because I had been so wrong about her. About the kind of love I thought we had, about who she really was when no one was watching. During the day, I picked up extra hours. Weekends, too. I started freelance writing again, the kind of hustle I thought I'd left behind post-college. It wasn't glamorous, and it felt like digging myself out of a hole someone else shoved me in. But I told no one. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people looking at me like a victim. I just wanted my dignity back. Meanwhile, my mom got loud. She called my aunts, my cousins, even my little sister. Told them I had turned my back on family during a crisis. Claimed she was going through a tough financial season and that I'd humiliated her over what she described as a minor misunderstanding. I knew the power of storytelling. I used to write fiction for fun, and now, I watched her twist narratives with experience. She didn't say she stole my savings. She said I overreacted. She didn't say she maxed out my account. She said I refused to support the woman who raised her. She was building pity, brick by brick. Soon the messages started. An aunt texted me. "You only get one mom." Another cousin DM'd me. "We all make mistakes. Don't be cold." Even my brother chimed in with, "It's just money. You're acting like she murdered someone." No one asked what really happened. No one wanted to. Because it was easier to believe I was selfish than to admit she was manipulative. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to send screenshots, bank statements, audio recordings if I had them. I even typed out a long thread once, detailing every dollar, every lie. But I deleted it before I hit send, because I realized something. They didn't want the truth. They wanted her version of it because it fit the story they liked better. So I stayed silent. Completely. No one knew what I was. Rebuilding. No one knew I was resaving, planning, learning. Let them think I'm ungrateful. Let them think I'm cruel. They had no idea that silence wasn't weakness. I don't know when exactly the shift happened. Maybe it was after the 4th guilt trip call from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in a year. Maybe it was my mom's latest Facebook caption. "God bless the ones who show up without conditions," paired with a photo of the purse I bought her, unintentionally. Whatever it was, something inside me hardened. The kind of hard that comes not from anger, but from clarity. I stopped crying. I started tracking every charge from my account. I downloaded the statements and highlighted each one. I matched them to public posts, to tagged photos, to receipts she'd left visible on her Facebook stories. She wasn't hiding her spree. She was showing it off. I screenshotted everything. Then I started putting together text receipts, messages from mutuals telling me, in not-so-subtle tones, that she really enjoyed finally getting something back after sacrificing for me all those years. One cousin even messaged, "TBH, she said you owed her anyway. At least now she got paid." I didn't delete it. I added it to the folder. Then came the DMs, quiet, almost apologetic, from people who'd seen through her but didn't want to say it out loud. A friend of hers wrote, "I love your mom, but even I was shocked she called it easy money. It rubbed me wrong." Another sent me screenshots of her gloating about my savings, ending it with a laughing emoji and, "You'd be surprised what guilt can still get you." Even from grown kids. That one hit me different. I stared at it for a long time. Even from grown kids. Like I was still a child she could sweet talk and manipulate. That was when I created the folder for real. One sitting clearly on my desktop. Silently titled, "Documentation, just in case." Then, I called in a favor. A friend from college I'd once helped crash course through a final had gone on to law school. We met for coffee and I explained everything. The unauthorized card use, the false story she was spinning to the family, the emotional damage, the visible paper trail. He heard me out, then scratched his chin. Morally, she's hit every red flag. But legally, that's murky. What if I file something civil? You can, but it'll go nowhere unless she admits intent to defraud. And giving her the card, even for one bill, weakens everything. You'll lose. I sipped cold coffee and stared at the table. So then what am I supposed to do? He paused, then said carefully, You may not win in court, but that doesn't mean you don't have power. Truth is still currency, especially when they doubt your side of it. That stuck with me. Truth, as currency. I couldn't take her to court, but I could take back the narrative. Quietly, strategically, truthfully. One receipt at a time. This wasn't revenge, it was insurance. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic turning point, no final door slam to mark the moment I took my power back. It was quiet, slow, careful rebirth, like rebuilding a home after a fire, one brick, $1, one decision at a time. 3 months after my mom drained my savings, I landed a remote job with a logistics company out of Chicago. Better title, better pay, a manager who respected boundaries, professionally and personally. I didn't cry after work anymore. I slept. Not because I was exhausted, but because I wasn't living in constant defense. It was a different kind of tired, the peaceful kind. The first thing I did was open a new savings account. I named it Never Again, literally. That's what showed on the banking app. Every time I transferred money in, it felt like a quiet promise to myself. You won't be exploited again. You won't be blind again. You won't be guilted into becoming small for the comfort of others. This time, only I could touch it. No shared access, no blurred boundaries, direct deposit. 2-factor auth, no more loopholes, and I didn't just rebuild financially, I restructured everything. I changed phones, got a P.O. box, removed her as an emergency contact. All the little ways she was quietly tethered to my life. I severed them, one thread at a time. I didn't announce anything. I just lived different. People noticed. Some stopped texting completely. The ones who only came around when they needed something from me or wanted a front row seat to her noble single mother act. But others stayed. My Aunt Camille invited me over for dinner one night. Something simple, just spaghetti and wine. We sat on her patio while her kids watched cartoons inside. She didn't bring up my mom, not directly, but between bites. She said softly, I see you, you know. I see what you've done to stand on your own. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone who was never listening. It took everything in me not to cry. After that, I started opening up in gentle conversations, not airing dirty laundry, just sharing enough for people to understand the truth she had buried under pity and performance. My mom didn't just borrow money, I told my cousin during one coffee meetup. She took my entire savings. No warning. I trusted her, and she used it like it was hers. There was a long pause. Then she looked up and said, Honestly, I believe you. She brags about scamming people, like it's funny. But no one's ever said no to her. No one's ever stood up to her. I felt something shift, not in her, in me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the truth out loud. Every time I told it, the guilt she planted in me rotted a little more. The shame lost its grip. I didn't need everyone to believe me. I just needed to say it without flinching. To not shrink when they gave me that hesitant glance, the one that said, But she's your mother. Yes, she is. And that's the last reason she should have done what she did. Truth became my boundary. Silence wasn't protection anymore. It was permission for her to keep rewriting what happened. So I wrote it myself. Word by word, quietly, patiently, and for the first time in years. I felt safe, not because she changed, but because I did. It always comes back around with her. She never says sorry. She never admits fault. She just waits until her next crisis and assumes I'll forget the last one. It was a Tuesday when I got the text. Just 7 words and a promise she'd never keep. Hey, can you just float me? $900 this month? Promise I'll pay you next week. No explanation. No mention of what had happened between us. No acknowledgement of the silence that had stretched between us since the last time she lied and stole from me. Just the assumption that I'd still be her safety net. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. She didn't know about the new job, the new account, the people who had slowly started believing me. She didn't know that this time I had receipts, boundaries, and, maybe most importantly, resolve. I stared at the text for a while, not hurt, not even angry, just done. Then I opened my photos. I scrolled back to a picture she'd proudly posted 2 months ago. Her at a high-end spa, wrapped in a robe, glass of champagne in hand. Her caption still burned in my brain, treating myself, finally. I deserve this. I screenshotted it. No words, no context, and I sent it back. A full minute passed, then 2, then 5. No reply, and none ever came. For the first time, I wasn't drowning in guilt. I didn't second-guess myself. I didn't wonder if I was being too cold, because I'd finally realized something crucial. She wasn't asking for help. She was testing if I was still someone she could use, and that test came back negative. I blocked her number that night, and slept like a rock. I should have known she wouldn't stop with me. Once I shut the financial faucet off, she found another bucket to fill. I didn't hear from her for weeks after I sent that spa day screenshot. But then whispers started trickling down. First through a family friend, then one of my younger cousins. She's doing better, they said. She got help. She's in a program now, like real support. I blinked into the phone when I heard it. A program? Yeah, the friend said with a proud little breath. She got into a 12-week residential thing near the city, paid for through the church. Pastor even mentioned it in the sermon. They're proud of her for owning her demons. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw my phone against the wall, because I knew my mother, and if she was in any kind of rehab, well, let's just say the last thing she'd be doing is telling people about it on Facebook. So I checked. First, I looked at her socials, where she was still very much active, still posting selfies, memes, Sunday brunches, and outfit photos with hashtags like New Energy and Booked and Busy. Then I checked her Venmo. She didn't realize her feed was public. I scrolled through transfers with captions like, "Stay strong, sis, for your journey. God's got you." It all added up. Over $2,000 in what people believed were donations toward her recovery. Money from church members, old neighbors, even a former teacher I recognized from middle school. They all believed they were helping a woman finally take her life back. But she wasn't in rehab. She was in a salon, getting her hair done, wearing donations, eating with them, living off them. I told myself to let it go. It wasn't my business anymore. It wasn't my fight. Until I saw a post from the church's youth group page. This weekend we raised $325 in honor of Sister D, rooting for her as she walks the brave road of healing. Let's continue to cover her in prayer and love. Brave road. I nearly threw up, so I opened the folder, the screenshots of her recent purchases, a time-stamped selfie from her dinner just 2 nights prior, the Venmo records, and text messages she had sent to a friend I trusted about how manipulation works wonders if you cry the right way. I packaged everything into a neat little PDF. Then, I sent it to the pastor. No explanation, no lengthy message, just the evidence and 3 words. She is lying. 2 days of silence passed. Then I got a text. Thank you for this. We're handling it. Later that week, I heard from a cousin who had attended that Sunday's congregation. She told me there was a meeting, a closed-door conversation between the church board and my mom, in front of the same people she'd tearfully accepted money from. When confronted, she broke. Not with accountability, but with performance. She cried, screamed betrayal, accused evil, jealous forces of trying to undermine her healing, claimed the whole thing was a smear campaign. But they didn't budge, because this time it wasn't just her story. It was evidence that spoke louder than her tears. She stormed out midway. Left before the pastor even concluded. I didn't attend. I didn't have to. The room already knew. The next day, she deleted her Facebook. 3 days later, She posted a blurry Instagram story with just a black screen and the word, "Fake people never prosper." No one responded, and while I didn't post anything in return, I sat quietly that night, sipping tea in my living room, watching the light flicker through my blinds. She'd always used guilt to shape reality. But this time, her truth shattered against mine, and I hadn't raised my voice once. I had so many angry words stored inside me by then, blistering, sharp things I wanted to throw at her just to make her feel it. But screaming never worked on her. She only ever listened when calm words cut deeper than rage. So I sat at my desk and pulled out a blank sheet of paper, and for the first time I wrote not to vent, but to release. The letter wasn't long, just a single page. I started with something true. Thank you for the things you did right, because despite everything, there were moments, even if they were fleeting. She taught me how to be self-sufficient. She cheered for me once when I got into college. She made great grilled cheese sandwiches and talked to me through the bathroom door when I cried in middle school over a mean girl at lunch. I gave her that. I wanted this letter to be honest, not hateful. Then I shifted. I listed each moment she never apologized for, not like a court case. Just memory after memory, strung together like a timeline of trust being slowly dismantled. You told me family shares everything, except it only went one way. You used motherhood like a receipt I hadn't paid yet. You took money, time, peace, and spun it into sacrifice. You never said thank you. The last paragraph was just 3 sentences. The ones I'd wished she'd understood without needing to be told. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your ATM, I'm done. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. But I did attach one thing. A photo of us from when I was about 8. We were smiling, both wearing matching shirts, her idea. For years, it sat on a small shelf in her living room, right under the TV. A permanent display of look how close we were. I taped the letter to the back of that photo. Then, I mailed it in an envelope stamped and addressed in my cleanest. Handwriting, no return address, no warning, just quiet honesty, delivered like a shift in the weather. 2 weeks passed. No call. No text. Then one day, my youngest cousin sent a blurry picture from that same living room. The photo of us? Gone. The shelf had an empty spot like something had been lifted, wiped clean and left bare. She didn't respond. She didn't lash out. She didn't defend herself. But she took that picture down. And in her silence, I heard everything I needed. Family barbecues used to be my favorite thing as a kid. Music, folding chairs, slippery watermelon slices, and the comfort of cousins crammed into 2 small spaces, laughing at dumb jokes. It was one of the few settings where everyone felt, at least temporarily, like we belonged. But this time, I came with a knot in my stomach and a folder in my glove box. I hadn't planned on going. I really hadn't. But the invite came from my Aunt Camille, one of the few relatives who had genuinely reached out, listened to my side, acknowledged the truth and the betrayal behind it. Her message was simple. Not everyone's aligned with her. Come sit with us if you decide to stop by. So I did. The air smelled like smoke and sweet corn. Uncle Reggie was manning the grill. Kids ran barefoot across the lawn. Music spilled from someone's Bluetooth speaker. And for a few minutes, it felt safe, familiar, almost normal until I saw her. She stood near the potato salad, dripping in a white sundress and gold jewelry I knew she couldn't afford without generous donors or stolen savings. My mom had always been good at camouflage. Generosity when eyes were on her. Icy cruelty when they weren't. I could feel her notice me, hold back for the right moment. It came during dinner. She waited until everyone was seated. Plates full, conversations idle enough to hear what she was about to say. She cleared her throat. A martyr's sigh painted across her face. "It means a lot to be here," she said, voice just loud enough to carry. "Especially after such a difficult year. Some people in my life judged me instead of supporting me. But I forgave them. That's what family should do." My fork stalled. Midair, someone mumbled a, "Mm-hmm." Another cousin nodded blankly. She picked up her glass and tilted it toward me across the table, practically glowing with passive aggressiveness. "So glad you're here. Baby. I pushed my chair back, stood slowly. I hadn't stood with the intention of making a scene. I planned on stepping outside, taking a breath, but something inside shifted. The same quiet clarity that guided me when I created the folder, wrote the letter, and stopped making excuses. I looked around at all these people she'd lied to, manipulated, guilted into silence with crocodile tears and half-truths. I reached into my purse and pulled out the tiny black receipt book I'd started months ago. Not full of vengeance, but of facts, timeline, transfers, a quiet record of what no one had wanted to see. The table stilled. "I'm not going to shame you," I said. "Eyes on her. But I am done pretending it didn't happen." My voice shook, but I didn't sit back down. I stood there like I was anchoring something, not a fight, but a line. "You took my savings, lied about rehab, made me out to be the villain because I stopped letting you treat me like a piggy bank. That doesn't just go away because you serve potato salad and call it grace." The silence was sharp. A soda can hissed open somewhere in the background. No one moved, and instead of raising her voice like I half expected, she froze. Quiet, but fuming. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes blinked fast like she wanted to shift into attack mode but didn't know how. Not with everyone watching. Across the table, Aunt Camille put down her fork and clapped once. A single, slow thank you kind of clap. My brother, the same one who used to defend her so blindly, exhaled, stood up, and walked away without a word. No yelling. No fireworks. No storm-out dramatics like she'd perfected over the years, just quiet accountability. She sat back in her chair, embarrassed. For once, she couldn't spin it. Couldn't twist my words midair like she had so many times before. And no one rushed to her defense. I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to. My chair stayed empty for the rest of the night, but I stood taller than I ever had. Later, before I left, Aunt Camille hugged me tight and whispered, "Sometimes truth doesn't need a mic, just a mirror." And as I walked back to my car, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. The silence that followed felt intentional, like she'd finally realized I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't interested in another round of guilt-laced apologies or half-hearted attempts at talking it out that ended with me apologizing for hurting her feelings with the truth. She didn't text, she didn't call, she didn't even subtweet or post her cryptic captions anymore, just vanished. And honestly, I didn't miss her. What surprised me most was how light I felt. It wasn't like flipping a switch, more like coming up for air after realizing you've been underwater far too long. Slowly, I built my days in peace. My new savings account grew, little by little, like something sacred. Each deposit was a private victory. Here's $100 you don't have to explain. Here's $300 that can't be touched. Here's $1,000 that no one else even knows exists. I stopped looking over my shoulder, started sleeping deeper. One morning, I sat at the kitchen table with coffee, calculating my funds, and realized something that stopped me like a thought striking glass. I can finally afford to leave for real, not in the dramatic, fleeing your past kind of way, but something quieter, something for myself, purely, so I booked it. A flight to the Pacific Northwest, a place I'd always wanted to wander alone. No itinerary, just me, a week off work, and a carry-on full of sweaters and books. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friends. I just packed, turned off notifications, and left. The plane took off on a clear morning. As we ascended, I leaned back in my seat, stared through the oval window, and watched the city get smaller beneath me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel buried under the weight of what she'd done, or what she might do next, or what I needed to fix to earn forgiveness. There was no need for revenge, no dramatic finish, no demand for her to admit anything. She knew. I knew, and it was enough. As the clouds shifted below us, I had this moment where everything in me went still. A thought that slid in, subtle and certain. You don't have to destroy someone back. To win, sometimes stepping away is the loudest thing you'll ever do. So I leaned my head against the cool window, exhaled, and let the sky take me somewhere new, not to escape the past, but to stop letting it decide who I had to be. The voicemail came on a rainy Tuesday. One of those gray, slow-moving days where the world feels hushed and thoughtful. I almost didn't check it. It came from a blocked number, which would have been lost to spam if I hadn't paused, mid-scroll and hit play out of habit. Her voice hadn't changed. That familiar blend of solemnity and softness she reserved for moments when she wanted something to sound important. "I miss you," she began, low and breathy. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But I'm your mother. That's gotta still mean something." There was a pause, like she was waiting for my forgiveness to arrive just from hearing her say it. Then gentler, "I hope you're doing okay. I really do." Click, 30 seconds. That was it. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just sat there on my couch, letting the rain tap lightly against the window, and realized I didn't feel hate or rage or sadness. I felt finished. There was nothing left in me that needed her to acknowledge the full weight of what she'd done. I wasn't holding my breath for an apology that came clean and without conditions. I didn't want vengeance or closure or some Hollywood-style reunion. I just wanted peace, and I finally had it. Later that night, I lit a candle. No rituals, no music, no big declarations. Just sat at my kitchen table in soft silence, watched the flame flicker, and said a quiet prayer, not for reconciliation, but for release. I prayed that wherever she was, still lying or finally learning, life would humble her in a way I couldn't. That she'd find healing as a person, not as my mother, and I prayed for myself, that I'd keep this quiet knowing of who I am, who I'm not, and who I refuse to become. That I'd never forget the strength it took to walk away, not with noise or fire, but with a kind of grace that doesn't owe anyone a performance. I never blocked her again. I didn't need to. But I didn't text her back. I didn't call. And I never gave her my new number. Some things deserve to stay unfinished, not because they're broken, but because forcing them whole again would twist you in ways you worked too hard to untangle. Forgiveness, I've learned, doesn't always come with a hug or a phone call or a reunion at some messy table. Sometimes it's just lighting a candle and moving on without looking back.